He asked her to calm down. She screamed back, asking if he had something to hide. Then, without warning, Angela stormed through a crowded restaurant, flung Michael's phone, called him a liar to his face, and snapped at the producers like they were her kids. Cameras caught the moment her eyes darted with panic right before it turned into rage. Her voice shook, not with sadness, but with the kind of fury that only shows up when someone feels completely out of control. And here's the wild part, this wasn't a breakdown. For Angela, this was how she connected. This meltdown was her version of intimacy. She said she was disrespected. He said he was afraid. She said she demanded loyalty. He said he couldn't even breathe. Then she told him to shut his mouth and act like a husband. The people at the next table sat frozen. The crew didn't even cut. They were chasing something bigger, because it wasn't just a woman yelling at her man. It was something deeper, messier, way older than this one fight. She wasn't trying to win the argument. She was trying to win back control. And when control slips, Angela doesn't beg. She blows things up and dares you to pick up the pieces. How did it get to this point? What turned this strange, long-distance love story into what looks and feels like a full-blown emotional hostage situation with a wedding ring in the middle? When Angela first showed up on 90 Day Fiance, before the 90 days, most viewers thought she'd be a one-season joke. A loud grandma from Georgia flying to Nigeria to meet a much younger man she met online. The comments wrote themselves, but Michael seemed weirdly patient, even sweet. He laughed through her outbursts, played along when she teased him about American life, and called her baby so many times it became a TikTok meme. At first, it almost felt like a harmless culture clash, meme-worthy, chaotic, but still two people trying to make love work across oceans. But even during those early, supposedly fun visits, you could already see something off. Angela wasn't just being cautious, she was controlling the tone of every moment. If Michael complimented another woman's hair on TV, even by accident, she'd freeze on camera. Smile gone, voice lowered, he'd immediately backtrack. And then she'd hit him with that line, "Don't make me look stupid." That phrase became her go-to threat, buried under laughter but always sharp enough to silence him. And that's when it started, the shift from playful to possessive, from attention to surveillance. Angela began asking about his friends, checking his social media follows, questioning why it took him 5 minutes to reply. One moment she'd be giggling and grabbing his face, the next she'd call him a liar if he looked left instead of right. Her love wasn't quiet or calming. It was loud, conditional, and constantly on edge. Every laugh felt like it had a timer on it. Still, Michael smiled through it. Maybe because he thought she'd calm down. Maybe because he thought this was temporary. But anyone watching could already tell, Angela didn't know how to trust. She only knew how to test. One night, the cameras caught this moment that should have been boring. She asked him about his phone. Just casually, "Who were you talking to last night?" He said it was his uncle. She didn't believe him, so she told him to give her the phone. He hesitated for 2 seconds too long, and just like that, it turned. She said, "If you've got nothing to hide, I should be able to look." She wasn't asking a question. She wanted proof, in real time, right then and there. To her, loyalty wasn't something built. It had to be proven, demanded, and reproven. Over and over again. What started as an awkward internet romance was now shifting into something more intense, because for Angela, trust was never a soft emotion. It was an interrogation. Love usually looks like connection, softness. Safety, for Angela, it looked like volume, power, a test she always had to win. Her version of bonding didn't happen during calm moments. It happened in the chaos. And the bigger the fight, the closer she felt. Because in her emotional wiring, control equals closeness. Conflict, once again, became the proof. Watch how it plays out. Every major argument between Angela and Michael ends the same way. She screams, he apologizes, she calms down. Then she hugs him, tells him she only acts like that because she loves him so much. Her meltdowns get mistaken for passion, but listen carefully. She's not saying she's hurt. She's saying she's scared he's slipping away, and instead of reaching out, she tightens the leash. By the time they returned in later seasons, a clear pattern had formed. Angela would find something, an Instagram post, a delayed call, a rumor. Then she'd detonate. Yelling wasn't the result of betrayal. It was her version of emotional regulation. She screamed to feel safe. She lashed out, not because she wanted to lose him, but because she couldn't handle the idea that he might leave. There's this moment burned into every viewer's memory. Angela marches into a small outdoor restaurant in Nigeria wearing a crop top and fury. She doesn't say hi. She doesn't sit down. She immediately demands Michael's phone, accuses him, and when he tries to calm her down, she calls him a liar. Then she turns to the camera and says, "If I can't trust him, this whole thing is done." This wasn't about information. She didn't dig for answers. She created a stage where she could dominate the scene and test how quickly he would submit. She made it loud, public, and impossible to ignore, because to her, silence means abandonment. But if she can force a response, any response, then he's still there. Still hers. In another episode, after recovering from weight loss surgery meant to improve her self-esteem, Angela didn't come home softer. She came back more suspicious. She accused Michael of being more interested in her old body than her new one. Logic didn't matter. He couldn't win. If he said he liked her old body, it was disrespectful. If he liked the new one, it meant he was shallow. Either answer gave her a reason to fight, and every time she exploded, he collapsed into apology again, hoping it would end the firestorm. But it never really ended. Because her relief came not from resolution, but from domination. Only when he stopped defending himself did she smile. Only when he gave in did she say, "I love you" out loud. There's a brutal scene where she mocks Michael's manhood on camera, not in private, not off-air. She says he's weak, not a real husband, and maybe he needs to grow a pair if he wants to keep her. Michael stares blankly. You can literally see the light go out of his face. This wasn't playful teasing. It was humiliation. And it worked, not because it built intimacy, but because it flattened his resistance. And this is where it gets darker. Angela's outbursts aren't uncontrollable. They're calculated. She knows how to raise the volume just enough to rattle him without fully losing the plot. Her anger is often selective, targeted, and almost rehearsed. She criticizes his tone, checks his contacts, questions whose name blinked across the screen. And if he doesn't answer fast enough, if he stammers at all, she takes it as confession. To the audience, it's exhausting to watch. But to Angela, that exhaustion is a form of tethering. If he's too tired to fight back, too drained to argue, then he'll stay. Fear becomes glue. Silence becomes peace. Compliance becomes proof of love. And ironically, this is when Angela starts being affectionate again. After the storm. Once he surrenders, she cups his face, calls him baby, and jokes about being a crazy American woman. It's framed as endearing, but the cycle is cruel. She turns emotional chaos into her love language. Connection only happens where the power imbalance lives. And Michael, he starts changing too. Slowly, he speaks less, smiles less. You see a shift in his posture. A man who was once hopeful begins to operate on autopilot. His reactions become clipped, controlled, measured, like someone living in survival mode, not partnership. One day, after another avalanche of accusations, Angela demands his phone again. He doesn't even argue. He just quietly hands it over, eyes blank, emotions buried. The man who used to call her 10 times a day now barely finishes his sentences. Angela thought she was holding the relationship together, but what she sealed in her grip was Michael's emotional shutdown. And when silence becomes his only way to feel safe, that's not love anymore. That's damage. Quiet, final damage. Angela's loudest breakdowns usually come from the quietest moments. Not when Michael lies, cheats, or fights back, but when he pauses. When he stays silent just a beat too long. When he looks away instead of directly at her. Those tiny, almost invisible hesitations are what set off the storm. Because for Angela, silence doesn't mean peace. It means she's disappearing. Every screaming match, every flipped table, every shattered phone screen, none of it is random. It's all preloaded panic. She doesn't wait to be hurt. She attacks first. If he leaves, fine, but it won't be without a fight. And if he stays, it better be in full surrender. Angela's not chasing validation anymore. She's defending territory, and that territory is Michael's full attention. When she feels it drifting, toward family, friends, even his phone, she sounds the alarms. To her, being ignored isn't something small. It feels like abandonment in slow motion. She said it out loud before. Joked on camera that Michael will probably leave her one day for someone younger, prettier, or more Nigerian. The audience laughed. But underneath the joke was raw fear, of being replaced, of aging out of mattering, of waking up and realizing she was never enough to begin with. That fear doesn't come out as sadness. It comes out as threats. She yells, not because she enjoys the rage, but because she doesn't know how to sit next to insecurity without dressing it up in fire. And when that fear hits, she needs control fast. She needs access to everything, his phone, his mind, his exact location. Not because she's evil, because she's scared. Take a look at her social media during the off-seasons. Anytime Michael posts a photo without her, she reacts, sometimes directly, sometimes through vague threats. Followers catch the comments before they're deleted. Can't trust anyone. Funny how quick people forget who held them down. They'll all regret it. When Angela isn't getting the spotlight, she burns the whole room down. Not for attention, but because attention makes her feel like she still matters. And when that spotlight dims, even for a second, the fear screams louder than any camera crew ever could. She'll go off on fans too, especially if they question her loyalty or suggest Michael deserves better. The comments pile up. Angela claps back hard, defensive, fast, and ruthless, but the way she writes gives her away. The sentences aren't just angry. They're desperate for the last word. Desperate to not be mistaken, dismissed, or forgotten. That same energy plays out in front of the camera every time Michael steps out of line, or worse, emotionally checks out. When he stops matching her volume, when he stops reacting at all, she panics. If he won't argue, that means he's not plugged in. And if he's tuning out, that must mean he's halfway gone. One time, when he asked for space during an argument, she told him straight up, "If you walk away, don't come back." Most couples argue over space. Angela turns it into a threat. Because to her, space feels like abandonment and distance feels like proof she's being replaced. Even during moments that should be joyful, Angela stays on edge. A wedding fitting, she flips out over the venue. A visa update. She questions if he even wants to be in America. Her baseline isn't happiness, it's vigilance. Constant emotional surveillance, always bracing for the next betrayal that might not even come. And that's when something strange starts happening, for the audience, not Angela. As she tears into Michael again for hesitating before saying, "I love you," something changes. We don't just see anger anymore. We see her gripping the table to stay grounded. We see her voice cracking through the scream. Not from volume, from panic. Angela accuses him of cheating, but we feel it. This isn't about him. Not really. This is a woman who's been left too many times. A woman afraid that the one person who tolerated every explosion might finally stop pretending to be okay. And when that fear shows up, she doesn't melt down. She self-destructs. Loud enough to be noticed. Furious enough to still matter. Because the one thing more terrifying to Angela than betrayal is being invisible. Angela doesn't come out and say she's insecure. She doesn't admit fear. That would make her vulnerable, and vulnerability is something she's spent her entire adult life avoiding. Instead, she turns every hidden fear into a weapon, sharp enough to control people before they get too close. And the easiest target for that projection? Michael. She accuses him of cheating, of lying, of wanting other women. But if you watch close, those accusations aren't built on proof. They're built on emotion, her emotion. They're built on the belief that sooner or later, someone's going to leave, and she needs to catch it before it happens. Not to stop it, necessarily. Just to say she was right. To keep herself from feeling stupid. Before he can disappoint her, she makes sure to disappoint him first. The irony is glaring. She spent thousands on cosmetic surgeries, traveled across the world, and pumped herself up on filters and hashtags, but still couldn't control the internal fear that maybe she wouldn't be enough. So her mind flips the switch. If Michael's unhappy, it must be because he is doing something shady. If he's quiet, he's hiding something. If he looks happy when she's not around, it's betrayal. Every little sign gets twisted into evidence that fits the narrative spinning in her head. This isn't about Michael being unfaithful. It's about Angela not wanting to admit that she doesn't feel secure in her own skin. So rather than face the mirror, she slams the door and checks his phone again. It's emotional blackmail disguised as concern. She demands love, but only after threatening to leave. She begs for loyalty, but tests it right after demanding proof. It's not a request for honesty, it's a setup. And if Michael passes today, the goalposts move tomorrow. And it breaks him. You can watch his spirit walking out of the room before his body even moves. He keeps trying to explain, to talk like two adults. But explaining only feeds the fire. Angela doesn't want an answer. She wants to win. One night, after yet another ambush disguised as a conversation, Michael finally speaks up. Calm, measured, and quiet. He asks her not to raise her voice. He asks her to respect his privacy, to stop assuming the worst, to maybe trust him. Angela laughs, not because it's funny, but because in her world, that level of self-respect sounds ridiculous. She scoffs, rolls her eyes, and flips the script in seconds. If you have nothing to hide, what's the issue? And just like that, his boundary became her proof. Michael wakes up every day inside a loop that never resets, just reloads. Angela demands. He tries to keep the peace. She accuses. He apologizes. She calms down. Then, without warning, it starts again. There's no true closure, only cooldowns. No resolution, only recess. And over time, that emotional loop stops feeling like a fight. It starts to feel like normal. Angela has built a reality where love is measured by submission. If Michael obeys, he's loyal. If he resists, he must be hiding something. And in that setup, all the pressure lands on him. He has to answer the phone the second it rings. He has to explain every pause, every glance, every hour he wasn't available. If he plays it cool, she says he's cold. If he matches her energy, she says he's disrespectful. He's stuck in a rigged game where the rules change mid-sentence. Public humiliation has become her sharpest tool, not by accident, but by design. She doesn't save her rage for private. She performs it like we're watching a live stream of dominance. Standing over him in restaurants, yelling mid-conversation, talking about his manhood in front of the entire production team. These moments are not just about anger. They're warnings. She's showing him what she'll do if he ever steps too far out of line again. Even her body language carries this message. Leaning in too close. Talking with her hands inches from his face. Making sure he's sitting while she's standing. It's not just a power play, it's about complete emotional control. And Michael, he's no fool, he's not oblivious. He smiles less now. He's quieter during fights. He doesn't push back the way he used to, but not because he agrees. You can see it in the way he blinks slowly, like he's somewhere else. You can feel it when he says, okay, 3 times in the same sentence, like someone trying to end a phone call, not mend a relationship. Angela thinks his silence means safety, but she misses the difference between submission and distance. His quiet is no longer surrender. It's strategy. He's not broken. He's observing, measuring, waiting for an opening, because now it's not about surviving with her. It's about figuring out how to leave without setting off the next explosion. The final straws don't come crashing down all at once. They fall slowly, quietly, stacking one on top of the other. Another phone grabbed out of Michael's hands. Another accusation in the middle of dinner. Another screaming match with onlookers pretending not to look. Each time, the shame lights up his face. Not embarrassment, something deeper. Exhaustion, resignation, one last tiny piece of himself slipping away. Angela, on the other hand, doesn't see the cracks. Or maybe she does, but chooses not to. Her version of strength only works if she's louder, bolder, more in charge than everyone else in the room. Control isn't just a habit for her, it's her entire emotional identity. Take that away, and what's left? If she isn't feared, she fears she'll be forgot. There's this moment late into their journey where Michael, barely holding it together, speaks quietly. He asks to be treated with the same respect he's been trying to show. He says he's tired, that he doesn't feel like a husband, that he feels like a prisoner with internet access. And for a second, everything stops. Angela doesn't scream. She doesn't grab, she just stares, blankly, almost confused. The silence hangs, then she flips again. If you feel that way, then go. A defense, not an answer, but something's different in her voice. She sounds less angry, more rattled. Like for the first time, she actually heard his pain instead of assuming it was an attack. Maybe she does know. Maybe Angela feels the shift happening but can't admit what it means. That control can't keep someone who's already emotionally gone. That fear dressed up as love will always push people further away. And the audience? Torn. Some feel for her, the insecurities, the pain that clearly rides beneath every angry word. Others are done, tired of the emotional whiplash, the one-way compassion, the blurred line between hurt and harm.